All right, so are you ready to dive deep into Thanksgiving with me?
Let's do it.
Awesome. We're going way beyond, the turkey and the football to really try to understand why this holiday is such a big deal. We have a really interesting report as our source material, and this report is in Spanish, which I thought was pretty cool. And it takes us through the history of Thanksgiving, how Thanksgiving shows up in pop culture, and even how Thanksgiving is changing in our digital world.
It's really remarkable when you think about how Thanksgiving has changed over time. It started out as a religious thing,
Yeah.
but now it's a national holiday and it comes with so much cultural and even commercial baggage.
Totally. Yeah. It's not just about giving thanks anymore, is it? Okay, so this report starts with the origin story. The Pilgrims and the Wampanoag sharing a harvest feast way back in 1621.
Oh yeah, I mean that image is so iconic,
Yeah.
But historians are really starting to point out that
Yeah.
that version of the story is maybe a little too romanticized. I mean, the relationships between the colonists and Native Americans were really complex. And, that first Thanksgiving, it might have been more about politics than a genuine celebration of unity.
Oh, wow. So the storybook version we all learned in school isn't the whole truth. I love it. A real plot twist. So the report even mentions how Governor William Bradford's account, which is one of the main sources for that traditional narrative, might have kind of glossed over some of the tensions and power dynamics at play back then.
Exactly. And, that's such a good reminder that history is often told from, one
Mm.
perspective. And understand the context, like the power struggles and the cultural clashes of the time is so important.
Totally. It makes you wonder how many other historical events we've kind of simplified or maybe even misrepresented over time. Okay, so let's think about this. How did we go from that first Thanksgiving to the national holiday we know today? According to the report, a key turning point was 1863, when Abraham Lincoln declared Thanksgiving a national holiday right in the middle of the Civil War.
And that was not just some random decision. Lincoln was really trying to use Thanksgiving to bring a divided nation together. He knew that having this shared holiday could help kind of heal those wounds of war and promote this sense of unity. It's amazing how much that sentiment still resonates today. Thanksgiving is still seen as this time to kind of put aside our differences
Yeah.
and celebrate what we have in common.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So Thanksgiving went from a religious observance to a tool for national unity. But then things kind of shifted again in 1941 when President Roosevelt moved the date. What was that all about?
Well, Roosevelt's decision was partly, driven by economics. Moving Thanksgiving earlier in November really extended the Christmas shopping season,
Mm.
which was great for retailers. And that move, it really cemented Thanksgiving's connection to consumerism. And I think we can definitely see that impact today.
It's crazy. Thanksgiving's history is full of surprises. It's like this holiday has mirrored the evolution of America itself.
You're so right. And speaking of how Thanksgiving has evolved, we should take a look at how it's been portrayed in pop culture. You might be surprised how much TV shows have to say about this holiday.
Okay.
The report highlights some really interesting examples, from heartwarming sitcoms to totally satirical cartoons.
Yeah, they talk about Friends, which is known for, their Thanksgiving episodes, which often focus on chosen families, and strengthening those bonds.
Think about those iconic Friends Thanksgiving episodes. Often they had characters who were far away from their families or didn't have traditional family structures. The show really captured that idea, that Thanksgiving is about celebrating with the people you love, whether or not they're blood relatives. It's about finding your own sense of belonging and community.
That's a really beautiful take on Thanksgiving.
I-
But then you have South Park, which takes a much more satirical approach. The report mentions this episode, a History Channel Thanksgiving, which kind of pokes fun at how we sometimes distort history to fit our own narratives.
Oh, South Park is so good at using humor to expose hypocrisy and kind of challenge our assumptions. That particular episode digs into how we often present this sanitized version of history,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to Thanksgiving. And they also hilariously highlight the over-commercialization of the holiday, which is something a lot of us can probably relate to.
Totally. It's amazing how two very different shows can use the same holiday to explore different aspects of our culture and our values. And speaking of reaching beyond borders, the report also dives into how Thanksgiving, even though it's an American holiday, has made its way to other parts of the world. It even mentions Canada's Thanksgiving, which actually has its own separate origins and falls on a totally different date.
It's so fascinating how traditions can travel, across geographical boundaries. Canada's Thanksgiving actually has its roots in European harvest festivals,
Hmm.
but it shares that same core value of gratitude. that we associate with, the American version.
And the report points out that Japan has a Labor Thanksgiving Day, which is a nod to the American holiday, even if it has, its own unique meaning. It seems like that concept of Thanksgiving, with its focus on gratitude and appreciation, has like this universal appeal.
Yeah, absolutely. It speaks to our shared human need to connect with others and express appreciation for the good things in our lives.
I love that. But the report makes a distinction between Thanksgiving and holidays like Chinese New Year or Diwali. Those are steeped in, religious and cultural traditions. While Thanksgiving seems to have become more secular and commercialized over time.
Yeah, that's a key observation. While Thanksgiving shares some common elements with these global festivals that focus on family gratitude and feasting, it has definitely developed this unique blend of historical and modern influences. And yeah, secularization, the commercialization, those are definitely factors that set it apart.
It's almost like Thanksgiving is this like microcosm of American culture itself, this mix of tradition and innovation, history and modernity and everything in between. But how does all of this play out in our digital age? The report explores how video calls and social media are changing the way we connect, or sometimes, disconnect during the holiday.
Yeah, that's such an important question. Technology has become such an integral part of our lives,
Yeah.
and it's definitely impacting how we experience Thanksgiving.
Yeah. It's like we
And
created this digital extension of the Thanksgiving table.
the report talks about how video calls are letting families, who are spread out all over the place, they can still kind of participate in the festivities,
Yeah.
see each other share stories and feel connected, even though they might be miles apart.
Yeah, it's like having a virtual Thanksgiving potluck where everyone can contribute, their presence and their good cheer,
Yeah.
even if they can't physically be there. And, it's not just video calls. Social media plays a role, too. People share pictures of their meals. They post messages about what they're grateful for. They even, debate about the best way to cook a turkey online.
It's all part of that modern Thanksgiving
It
experience.
really is. But, we have to be real here. There's kind of a downside to all of this connectivity, too.
Yeah.
How many times have you seen, like, families gathered for Thanksgiving dinner, but everyone on their phones just scrolling through social media instead of actually, like, talking to each other?
It's like we're physically present but mentally somewhere else. It's that paradox we were talking about before. Technology can bring us closer together,
Yeah.
but it can also create distance even when we're in the same room.
Mm.
I think it's important to be mindful of how we use technology, especially during, a holiday that's supposed to be about connection and togetherness.
Yeah. How can we kind of, like, find that balance? How can we embrace the benefits of technology without letting it overshadow those human connections that make Thanksgiving, so special?
Maybe it's about setting some boundaries,
Right.
like having those designated phone-free times during the meal so everyone can focus on each other, or making a conscious effort to just put those phones down
Yeah.
and engage in some, face-to-face conversations. It's really about being present and appreciating, the people around us.
Yeah. Those are really good ideas. It's so easy to get caught up in that digital world and kind of forget to appreciate the moments that we have together. The report also talks about how Thanksgiving traditions themselves are changing. Like, they mentioned the trend of Friendsgiving, which seems to be getting more and more popular, especially among younger generations. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great example of how traditions are adapting to fit, modern life. Friendsgiving is all about celebrating Thanksgiving with your chosen family, your friends. It reflects how important those relationships are.
Yeah.
And how people are kind of creating new traditions that resonate with, their values and their lifestyles.
I see that. It's like taking the core values of Thanksgiving, like gratitude, connection, and those shared meals, and applying them to like a different social context. And, the report also mentions how people are getting really creative with their Thanksgiving menus these days. There's more vegetarian and vegan options. People are experimenting with different cuisines, and some people are even ditching the turkey altogether.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think it shows how Thanksgiving is like a living tradition that's constantly evolving and adapting. It's not about like rigidly sticking to the same menu or the same format every single year. It's about finding ways to make the holiday meaningful and relevant to, your own life and your own values.
So it's not just about what's on the table, but also about who's at the table and how we're connecting with each other. I love that idea of Thanksgiving as a living, breathing tradition that's constantly being reinterpreted.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating. Thanksgiving is this tapestry woven from history, culture, and personal meaning. And each generation adds its own threads to the pattern. making it richer and more complex. We've explored its origins, its political and economic twists, its pop culture representations, its global reach, and how technology is changing how we celebrate. But there's one more piece to this puzzle that I think is really important for us to consider: the future of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's a great point. We've looked at how Thanksgiving has evolved, over the centuries. But what will it look like in the years to come? As technology continues to advance and society keeps changing, how will this holiday adapt?
It's a fascinating question to think about. Will virtual reality Thanksgiving feasts become like the norm? Will we be 3D printing our turkeys?
Oh, a 3D printed turkey. I don't know about that. But seriously, the report does touch on how technology could shape, future Thanksgiving traditions. Imagine personalized digital menus that are like tailored to each guest's dietary preferences, or augmented reality games that everyone can play around the dinner table, no matter their age or tech skills.
Those are some really interesting possibilities. But beyond all the gadgets and futuristic scenarios, I think the real question is, how will the core values of Thanksgiving, gratitude, connection, and community, evolve in this rapidly changing world?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? It's not about the technology itself, but about how we use it to enhance those meaningful connections and celebrate what truly matters. Maybe Thanksgiving in the future will be this blend of the digital and the physical, like gathering with loved ones both in person and virtually, sharing stories across time zones, and finding new and creative ways to, express our gratitude.
I love that idea of a hybrid Thanksgiving experience. Imagine families spread out all over the globe, coming together in a shared virtual space, enjoying a meal together and reminiscing about past Thanksgivings
Yeah.
through digital photo albums and interactive storytelling. It's like preserving that tradition of gathering while embracing the power of technology to connect across distances.
Yeah, it's like having the best of both worlds, the warmth of being together in person, combined with that ability to connect with loved ones no matter where they are. And, let's not forget about the potential for Thanksgiving to become even more inclusive and diverse in the future. As society evolves and, cultural boundaries blur, we might see Thanksgiving traditions blending and adapting, incorporating elements from different cultures and culinary traditions.
That's beautiful.
I know.
Imagine a Thanksgiving table where traditional American dishes sit alongside flavors from all over the world, a true feast for the senses, and a celebration of, the richness and diversity of our global community.
It's so inspiring to think about how Thanksgiving could evolve into an even more inclusive and welcoming holiday.
I think it's important to remember that Thanksgiving isn't just a day on the calendar. It's a reflection of who we are, both as individuals and as a society. And as we move into the future, it's up to each of us to shape how this tradition evolves. We need to make sure that it remains, a meaningful and relevant celebration of gratitude, connection, and the shared human experience.
That's such a powerful reminder. Thanksgiving is more than just a holiday. It's a chance to reflect on what we're grateful for, to connect with the people we love, and to reaffirm those values that are important to us.
Absolutely. And as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought. What will your Thanksgiving story be? How will you contribute to the ongoing evolution of this fascinating holiday? And what will you be grateful for, not just on this day, but every day?
Those are great questions to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Thanksgiving. We hope you've gained some new insights and perspectives on this multifaceted holiday. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, so we talked about the past and the present of Thanksgiving, but what about the future? I mean, what will Thanksgiving look like 50 years from now? Will we all be wearing those haptic suits and like virtually carving a holographic turkey?
Haha, a virtual Thanksgiving feast. Now that's an interesting thought. While the technology is definitely fun to imagine, I think it's important to remember that technology is a tool, and it's up to us to use it in a way that enhances our lives and strengthens, those human connections.
Right, I see what you mean. It's not about replacing those in-person gatherings, but maybe about finding ways to make them even more meaningful and inclusive. The report actually talks about how technology could help kind of personalize the Thanksgiving experience. Like imagine having a digital menu that caters to each guest's dietary needs or preferences, or like interactive games that everyone can play around the dinner table, no matter, their age or tech skills. Yeah, exactly. Technology can help kind of bridge those gaps and create, more engaging and welcoming experience for everyone. Think about families who have members with dietary restrictions or allergies. A digital menu could make it so much easier to plan a meal that everyone can enjoy without anyone, feeling left out or having to bring their own separate dish.
Totally. It's like using technology to create a more inclusive and thoughtful celebration. And it's not about, replacing tradition, but about finding ways to make it more relevant and accessible to everyone. And who knows, maybe those AI-powered kitchen assistants will finally help us all master grandma's secret stuffing recipe.
Uh-huh. No, that's a future I can definitely get behind. Imagine having like an AI guide you through every step of the cooking process, making sure you know that every dish turns out perfectly. It could take so much of the stress out of hosting and free us up to focus on spending quality time with our loved ones.
It's like having a personal chef, but without, the hefty price tag. But jokes aside, as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that Thanksgiving is more than just a holiday. It's a reflection of who we are and what we value. It's a tapestry woven from history, culture, and personal meaning. And as we move into the future, it's up to each of us to shape how this tradition evolves, ensuring that it remains a meaningful and relevant celebration of gratitude, connection, and that shared human experience.
So well said. And as we, look to the future of Thanksgiving, I want to leave you with this question. What will you be grateful for this year? And how will you express that gratitude not just on Thanksgiving Day, but every day?
That's such a great question for all of us to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Thanksgiving. We hope you've enjoyed exploring, the past, present, and future of this fascinating holiday. Until next time, happy Thanksgiving, everyone.